What's happening, everybody? Good morning. We're at the West Coast River Outlaw shop here in Arlington, Texas. And what you're looking at behind me is my buddy Dustin's 1975 Taylor SS. This thing's been sitting in a field for, I think he said like 10 years. It could be actually longer than that. But he was looking for a shop that could work on jet boats. And long story short, he found us through my buddy Cade's Kona video that we put out. So he gave us a call and was like, dude, can you actually work with me on this thing? I know it's rough, but it's a family heirloom. I think he said my dad and my uncle had a lot to do with this boat. And I remember being in it when I was a kid, and it's mine now. And I want to take it back there so I can have my family enjoy it just like I did when I was little. And I said, bring it. So we got a lot of stuff that we're working on with this thing. We're pulling the entire fuel system out. We're cleaning out the fuel tank. We're redoing the plumbing on the motor and the fuel. We're doing a new carburetor, new distributor. It's got an Oldsmobile in it. It rotates and it has compression, so that's a good start. The oil is black and it's not milkshake, which is also a really great start. So we're gonna take care of getting the motor running again, just basic tune-up stuff. New cables, new wiring, the list goes on, right? But the key is to get it fundamentally sound so that he can take his family out and enjoy it. So no time like the present, let's jump in. So as you can see, we've already done quite a bit of teardown work. We took the entire upholstery out so that we could get to the motor and the cables and the wiring and stuff like that. Some stuff that we've found on the motor. These freeze plugs are shot. And it's actually missing two freeze plugs, one on this side, one on that side, and the others look like they're leaking. Upon removal of everything, we called Dustin and said, yo, we gotta lift this motor and put new freeze plugs in. That's the right way to do it. We want to set you up right. And he said, let her rip, tater chip. So that's kind of where we're at right now. I need to get in and climb underneath the dash and start stripping the rest of the wiring up front. The motor at some point is gonna have to be lifted so that we can pop a freeze plug out, go match it and go get a new set, and then just keep rolling. I think what I'm gonna do right now though, is I'm gonna take the fuel tank out, sitting right over there, and we're gonna start cleaning it. Okay, so the fuel tank, you can tell it smells like varnish. So it's had fuel in it for quite some time. So we're gonna remove the tank that, by the way, has been drilled and bolted through the bottom of the boat. So we've gotta disconnect it there. We have to disconnect the fuel fill hose. We've got new rubber for that as well. So I'm gonna start working on that. Plus it'll make things a little bit easier to climb in here and get the motor ready to get pulled and put new freeze plugs in. So let's go. All right, first things first, we gotta get the fuel fill neck, which is totally shot out. So there's a hose clamp on the bottom that is 3/8. So we are gonna remove that. And I don't really know if I'm gonna be able to get the hose all the way out just yet, but I'm gonna at least get it loose so that when the tank is free and ready to come out, it's not jamming us up here. The next thing I'm gonna do is take these two bolts out. They are, looks like 1/4-20, not stainless steel for a fact, through the bottom of the transom, and they're lock nutted on. It's a 7/16 in this situation, and I'm going nice and slow because they seem to be coming out pretty okay, but I was afraid of them spinning. So if they were spinning, I would have needed someone on the bottom, probably me, to basically hold whatever the nut or the bolt is on the bottom and have someone undo these on the top. And then also my biggest fear was having to cut them off, which, you know, we're right next to a gas tank and also we're in fiberglass. So, you know, sparks everywhere with a grinding cutoff wheel doesn't sound the most fun. So neither here nor there. Looks like they're coming okay. Yeah, we're definitely gonna be replacing his hardware. Look at that. Here's the next cool thing. Like you see here on the front, there's two on the back. And there is very little room. So I have to figure out how I'm gonna get back there and undo those nuts. I think what I'm gonna do, I don't know what I'm gonna do. Realistically, the best solution would be to pull the motor which needs to come out anyways so that I can sit where the motor is and put my hand back here. But because I'm a glutton for punishment, I'm gonna try it before that. Maybe if I climb way through here. Nope, that ain't gonna work. If I climb right here. Now the other thing is, I'm hoping that I can get in here and loosen them without having issues with this bolt spinning. Because if this bolt's spinning, oh yeah, there's two. If this bolt's spinning, that's gonna be a hard deal to cut and open up. And it would help if I had the right socket. Fingers crossed. That thing is way up there. I'm on it. I think it's loosening. You hear about jokes of guys working on their cars and their trucks and having like a 10-foot extension on their ratchet because it's impossible to get your arm back there and do stuff. And I'm feeling that right now. Here comes Bill. Hi, Bill.
Yeah.
A fuel tank? Okay, I think I got that one. And that was the hard one. Hey, Jared, why didn't you get a 9 to 5, $30 an hour, medical benefits, air-conditioned office? Because I like laying my face in rat turds. It's a lot of fun. I have a blast. I don't know what's poking me in the stomach either, but you know, it's good fun. Oh, I got them off. Need to undo the fuel vent is probably what this is because it's in the front of the tank. Like I said, we're doing all new hardware, we're doing all new fuel line, new vent line, new fuel fill hose. And the whole purpose behind getting the tank out right now is so that we can clean it and make sure that we don't put any junk down the neck of his new carburetor. So everything holding this tank in is off and removed. So theoretically, this thing should come out. Oh my God, and it is full of something. I think I'm gonna have to take the hose off somehow, which is gonna be challenging. Okay, that's off and destroyed. Oh, she's coming. There is so much fuel and or water in this thing that I can't even lift it. Dude. Oh yeah, it's definitely full.
Dude, the stud through the bottom of the boat is the best.
Look at that. It's good. And one's already going through. So that means that there's gonna be a leak there. So what now has to happen is I'm probably gonna tap these all the way through so we can put the correct hardware in, make sure it's stainless steel. Yeah, new hardware, and I gotta vacuum some shit. Thanks, Bill.
You're welcome.
Okay, got this puppy all vacuumed out, and we're gonna climb under the dash for the first time and see what she looks like. Ooh. Oh, that's good. Safety. That's the hour meter. That's the speedo, tack, and our gauges. Kinda typical what I would really expect, but all of this is gonna come out and we're gonna redo it. So I'm gonna get the camera set up and we're gonna get to stripping some wiring. It is time to wire that thing, or at least get started on it. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what we got here and what we're gonna put in it versus what came out of it. So you can see a whole bunch of different wire here, different color, and you've got 12 gauge and then you've got 14 gauge. The 12 gauge is gonna be what runs the primary heavy voltage in the boat. So we've got black for the ground, we've got red for the constant hot that comes directly off the battery switch. And then I like to run a 12 gauge white wire directly to the starter because that gets damn near full voltage when you crank the key to kick that motor over. Then we have a whole bunch of other different color wires in 14 gauge. And I'm gonna try and rattle them off as best as I can, just off the top of my head on the fly. So we have purple, which I usually run for ignition. That's gonna be when you kick the key to the on position, that gives power to everything that needs power. Ground, that's going to be daisy chained in between like your gauges and anything else that might need a ground wire. Pink, I usually do either an electronic fuel pump or run it to the fuel sending unit, which I'm hoping is still good, but we'll see. No promises there. We got brown. Brown is typically, ironically, going to be water temperature. I always thought that brown was oil pressure, but it is not, in fact. In most cases, 14 gauge brown is going to be water temp. Then you got blue, oil pressure. You got gray for tack. Orange, I usually run for like an accessory, so bilge, for example. You've got green, which he's got a blower, a fan, since this thing technically has a hatch or had a hatch. So that'll go to the blower. He's got running lights or navigation lights. And then a horn. So all your accessory stuff is going to be smaller gauge because it doesn't take a whole bunch of power. In this case, 14 gauge is what I like to use. And then for the big primary things, you've got 12 gauge. Okay, we're almost there. That's only half the battle. The other thing is, this is the fuse block that we pulled out of the boat. Look at that. I have no idea, but that is a fire hazard to the max right there. That's going away. We're gonna use a marine approved fuse panel that gives us, what is this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 12 circuits, which is more than enough for what we're gonna need, but that's okay. It gives him extra in case he wants to add a stereo or electronic hatch opening or whatever the case is, right? This will give us plenty. We're gonna have a spot to bring constant power from the battery switch here. So you've got your 12 gauge red wire, that's gonna go there. And then you've got a ground here that's gonna come directly off the battery with the 12 gauge black wire. And then you have all these other little sections. Your positives are gonna come into here, and then your negatives are gonna come into the bus bars down there. So no more of that. Also, if you look at his old key, you can see that it totally blew out his ignition switch or key when we pulled it out. So we've got a brand new C-Star Marine approved ignition switch that we're gonna wire in, and these are really simple. You've got solenoid here. Solenoid's gonna go to the starter, so when you kick the key over like you're gonna start the thing, that's where power goes to the starter. You have ignition, right? That's gonna be that purple 14 gauge wire that's gonna go there. And then you have BAT, which pretty much stands for battery. So you've got a constant 12 volt that's gonna go there. So we're gonna find a good place to mount this puppy, probably not in the same spot that the original one was, and we're gonna get to work. First thing we got is the key. So we're gonna disassemble it. You've got a lock bezel on the front, and then you have an adjustment nut on the back. Everybody's dash is going to be thicker or thinner, and they're all different. So what this is for is to allow you to change and adjust how far the post sticks out the front of the dash. As you can see, the further I push that back, the more threads it gives me here in order to put the lock nut or the locking bezel on it. Okay, the other thing that I want to make sure of is that the key sits in straight up and down, personally. I mean, I don't want to have it sitting like that, because typically when you kick a key on, that is in the run position or the ignition position. So we're going to try to get it as center as we can, there, and then you carefully take a crescent wrench and you tighten it. And I like to put the crescent wrench kind of on the tip of it. You're not putting a ton of pressure, but you're putting enough to actually let it bite. And the whole reason I don't put the crescent all the way on it is because I don't want the edge of the wrench to scratch the gel coat. Okay, that's in. Give it a twist. It doesn't move when you twist it and give it a bump, so we're good to go there. I would also put in the switches for like your bilge and your horn. Let's see, it was horn, key, bilge, blower, and then there's one other one over here that you guys can't see for nav lights, but we're still waiting on those. So no big deal. The next thing we need to do is climb underneath and figure out where exactly we're gonna mount that new fuse panel. All right, we are underneath the dash, or well, the camera is anyways, and we're gonna try to find a spot to stick the new switch panel. And to tell you the truth, that spot don't look terrible. Problem is it's a little bit too wide and it sticks down. I mean, if we put it over there, it would maybe work, but that's one option, okay? One option. I don't really want to stick it here. I'm not a fan. And there's nothing on the top here either. The dash is too thin, you know, back here behind there, and there just frankly is no room anyways. So that's out. You know, the other option is too, you can see right there might actually be the move. You know, something like that. And then we can run the wiring to where it's in wire loom up here and the wire holders, and we can run it nice and tight up here. The key with wiring is to make it look clean. You can ruin a really nice project really fast when things look like a rat's nest or a bowl of spaghetti, and we don't want to do that. So I think that's where we're gonna mount it. We're gonna use number 6, I wanna say probably 3/4 inch pan head screws. And there's 4, 1 in each corner of these. So we're gonna get the camera mounted and bust out the Milwaukee and hanger. Let's see, do we go that way? There's a couple different ways we could do it. We could go this way. We're probably not even gonna use these circuits down here. So I think I'm gonna mount it like that. Once all 4 of them are in, and redo it, because I don't like that. All right, I got the right bit on. And you're drilling into plastic, so you need to make sure not to crank this thing down. The wood screws are gonna bite pretty well, so there's no need to go ham on it. You don't want to crack the ear or the wing of the plastic, and then you're in all sorts of trouble. So as you can see, I pulled that one screw out that was slipping, and I'm replacing it with a new one. Okay, we need to get some hangers in here, but I think before that, we're gonna actually run some wiring. Well, nah, let's put some hangers in. We'll probably do 3, 1, 2, 3. That way it keeps everything looking nice and clean. And then we'll climb upside down in the dash and look at the gauges and start making a game plan there. Okay, these are real simple and also real cheap. They're just plastic wire holders. I'm gonna put one probably there, one probably there. A little more challenging when there's a camera in the way. And you guys probably won't see this one, but I'm gonna go close to the corner here. That way the wiring hugs the 90-degree angle there, looking nice. If you guys could see what I look like right now, that'd be fucking hilarious. Tyler will make me look stupid, don't worry. Okay, we have our 3. So you can see the wiring will come in from here, go up into the hole, go up into the wire holders, and then come up over into the corner here and plug right in. It'll look super clean. Okay, next I think we need to actually run some wiring, which requires us to start in the back of the boat, and I'll tell you why. Well, as you can see, Dave's been working hard when I'm not here. The motor's not there, and that's because he used our new gantry crane and pulled that puppy out so that we can start working on freeze plugs and resealing a bunch of stuff on the motor because it's been sitting for some time. Okay, that's another segment though. Let's talk about the wiring back here. Why are we starting in the back of the boat? Reason why is because I don't like to fish a bunch of wiring in over and over and over and over and over again. We know our primary wiring that needs to go up to the dash panel that gives us gauges and controls, so we might as well take it all at once and run it all at once. So we start back here. The other reason why we do that is so that we don't have multiple splices with butt connectors connecting the wiring where, let's say, we ran short and we needed to extend it. That's okay if you really need to, but the least amount of butt connectors that you can have in a wiring harness, the better. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna probably put our wiring here. There is a factory wire holder. It's like a little cup. It almost looks like they took a toilet paper roll or a paper towel roll and fiberglassed it up underneath the boat right here. Oh, there's one right here too. And that is to hold your cables and your wiring and stuff from the factory. They do get old over time and they do fall out, but the best thing to do is to fiberglass it in there if you have the means to do so. So we're gonna start here in this one and work our way around and run it all the way up to the dash. We have our entire wire bundle, which I'm gonna walk through right now and make sure that I'm not missing anything or I'm not adding too much. But yeah, let's just get started. Ugh. Primary wire, primary ground, starter. Those are our 12 gauge wires. Okay, 14 gauge, we have our tack, oil pressure sending unit, water temperature, horn, bilge pump, fuel sending unit, running lights, and then we have ignition, which ignition does need to go because the ignition, I was thinking about it, ignition is what's going to go to the coil of the ignition system to actually kick power on, as well as the MSD that he's got, because we're replacing that junk. Okay, we have our entire wire harness. We're going to undo each one and basically zip tie the end of it and start feeding all of it. And hopefully it doesn't make a giant bundle of mess up here. If it does, then we're gonna have to figure out a different way, but I'm pretty sure we'll be okay. Traditionally, you're gonna want a different color wire for everything. In this situation, we pretty much are doing that. The only wire that's gonna be the same color is the white, but they're different gauge, so something to pay attention to. What a lot of guys will do is they'll take like a giant broom handle or some kind of metal round PVC pipe, and they'll run it through every single spool of wire so that you can just pull and it'll actually make your job a hell of a lot easier. And it may look like a jumbled mess right now, but I promise you, after you are done tying up every single thing in here, you can pull one wire at a time and it'll look good. Okay, time to go under the dash. So off camera, I went ahead and added a couple more wire holders on the dash side so that we have proper hold'ems. And right now what I'm doing, I've ran it all the way through there, and now we need to get our wires to go that way. So I'm gonna look for primary red and primary black, which is constant hot and constant ground, 12 gauge. That's gonna be these two. And I'm gonna feed them through this way. And I'm gonna pull the slack out just so that we don't have a bunch of spaghetti in here. So we have our constants, which are the bigger ones, and then we have the blue ones, which are gonna be for the 14 gauge. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make this look nice like that. I'm gonna take the ends of it so that I don't waste any wire, and I'm gonna cut those on there. So let me go get that wrench and then I'll be right back. Okay, let's start with the negative. I'm gonna give you this cute little boot. Got our cool little strippers here. That is huge. Might be using something different. Well, what you also can do is you can strip more of it off and double it up, which I'm still not really liking. That's huge. See how much room there is? I'm not a fan of that. So I've got other ones that I'm gonna use. Okay, we got here a shrink wrap butt end. Slides right over. It's the right size, and it'll actually hold the wiring better, in my opinion, than what they've given us. So you'll notice on the wrench, they have a couple different options in the teeth. They've got one that's got an opening, they've got one that's got a nut or like a little bulge, and then they've got a smaller bulge here. What I've learned is if it is a shrinkable tube like this, or it has a sheath on it, you technically don't really want to use the one with the bulge in it. You want to use the open piece there, because when you shrink wrap it, it's gonna tighten it. Some of these though, like the red ones, which go to 14 to 16 gauge and sometimes even 18, they don't crimp tight enough. So sometimes you do actually want to use the bulge. In this situation, we're gonna try the non-bulge. I hate saying the word bulge. It's kind of weird. That's on. Gonna give it a tug. Oh yeah, she's not going anywhere. Constant power, same thing. Use the non-protruding side, which really doesn't sound any better. All right, let me get the heat gun and we'll heat those shrink ends and then we'll install them. Got our heat gun, good old Harbor Freight, and we've got it on low heat, and we're gonna do one at a time. You'll notice I'm gonna go up, not towards the carpet. You will melt the carpet. Ask me how I know. And all you're gonna do is put a little heat on it till it starts to shrink up. There she goes. And if it wasn't already hot under the bow, it most definitely is now. Cool, there she is. Now I'm gonna make sure that I don't put the heat gun down on the carpet or on myself, because that would really suck. Now here is the cover. It's gonna go just like that. So as you can see, it's gonna allow us room to come out here and come out here, not really up here. So when we do this, we wanna make sure that we install these puppies with room. I'm gonna put one there. We've got a washer. There's a washer behind it, and then the butt end, and then the washer, as well as the lock washer. And like everything nowadays made in China, this is, I think I said it's an 8mm wiggle. It ain't moving. The washer behind and in front of the connector is there so that when you tighten the nut, it doesn't spin and grab the butt end connector. So you want to make sure that if your equipment comes with that, you use it, and we're not going crazy tight. And here's our cover. Boom, look at that. Okay, and then I'm gonna take the black wire and pull it in tight, not crazy tight. I like things looking methodical. So that's gonna go just like that, and then this will come up and go just like that, and then we'll put a zip tie in the corner so everything looks flowing well. Remember, take your bowl of top ramen and straighten every single noodle out. So now we're gonna go through and, well, maybe not immediately, but once we start putting our circuits in, these wires will come straight up and zip tie into this main black wire and come this way and look really clean. So there's that. Now we've got a whole bunch of wire spaghetti to deal with. While we've been under the dash, Dave's been busting ass getting this motor all ready to rock. As you can see, he got one of the valve covers off, which is pretty cool. These are 7A Oldsmobile heads, which I have no idea what those are, but that's interesting to me. So I think the intake's coming off, the valve covers are coming off. We got new gaskets for those, obviously new plugs. We got an MSD distributor and a Holley double pumper for it. And then we're gonna clean up the water pump cover, new gasket for that. And then obviously, as we told y'all, we're missing some freeze plugs. And as you can see, it looks like somebody already tried to fix it once with RTV. And it looks like this one's getting ready to go too. So, new freeze plugs, got a whole bunch of stuff to do on this thing. In the meantime, back to wiring. All right, can't really tell any different from the outside other than the new wires hanging out, but let me show you what we did underneath. Boom. So as you can see, everything is color coordinated and flowing in the right direction. So we ran new lights with a fish net. We stuffed it through the bow eye and shoved it all the way down underneath here, all the way through. And we were able to get 2 new wires in for the bow light. We were able to get all new wiring, all zip tied up, looking nice in all the gauges as well. And you'll notice how wiring is supposed to look clean, right? So everything is color coordinated. You'll notice zip ties periodically to keep things looking nice and clean. Off camera, I looked at the tack and figured out what the schematic was, the wiring diagram. So we got that handled. Pretty much ran the wiring all the way through the back, all the way down, and all the way to the back of the boat where you can see it hanging right there. So that's pretty much it for the wiring underneath the dash. Everything looks really good. I'm super happy with it. I hope the customer is super happy with it. And the next thing that's gotta happen is the motor needs to be back in the boat. And then we finished wiring everything in the back. So there's gonna be an MSD, there's gonna be a coil, there's gonna be a water temp sender, an oil pressure sender, the horn, the stern light. I mean, we got a whole bunch of stuff. Fuel sending unit, starter, I mean, the list goes on. But everything under the dash is pretty much good to go. Dave killed it. Pulled the intake, cleaned up everything. It actually looked pretty nice. I was expecting to see a lot of sludge and junk in there, but it wasn't. We gave it a quick rattle can of some VHT high temp gloss black paint just to make it look a little bit nicer. We replaced the fuel pump in it. The standard fuel pump was old. So this is a Carter upgraded mechanical fuel pump. Not that this motor needs a whole lot, but we're gonna give it as much as we can as far as fuel support goes, especially when it gets a brand new Holley double pumper and that MSD ignition. It's gonna burn some fuel. So it's looking pretty good. Today we are going to put oil in it and get going on resealing the intake and a bunch of other goodies. So let's go to the bench and see what we got. So first and foremost, one of the things that we need to do is put the front water pump block off plate on, which is this puppy right here. It was made by Hardin. There were a couple of other companies back in the day, Hardin Marine, Berkeley, Guardian. So we need to put this back on. It uses the traditional water pump seal that you would use in like a car, for example. And a lot of people just put it on dry, which is fine. But because it's an older motor and has not been machined, I like to put just a little bit of the right stuff on it. This helps with sealing it, and it also helps keep the gasket on there without it moving around when you're trying to put the bolts through. Then before we put the intake on, we're gonna put some oil in the lifter galley area. It makes the most sense to lubricate as much as we can before buttoning the motor back up. So I like VR1 by Valvoline. They make a couple different weights. And in this situation, we're using 1030. 2050 is the other popular one. And that typically is gonna go into like a big block Chevy or similar. So 1030, and then we've got a good old Wix filter that I like to use. So we're gonna fill her full of oil and button her up. It's been a couple minutes. Pull these puppies off carefully. And I'm gonna put them through the plate so that we can grab pretty much immediately. And I like to hover just so I don't disturb the gasket. Do the bottoms, do the remaining ones surrounding. And there are two different sets of bolts in here. So you just wanna make sure that you're putting the right ones on the in the right hole. The other thing too is you'll notice I'm using a traditional ratchet. I'm not using an impact. That seems to be the new thing in the world nowadays, is just, oh, grab the Milwaukee. Okay, well, that's cool. Like, there's a time and place for everything. But the unfortunate thing is stuff like this, if you are not careful, especially with an impact, you can actually strip your threads out, and then you're just having a bad day, because now you've got to add a helicoil and all sorts of other stuff. So this gives me more control over what I'm doing. Now we're gonna go one at a time. And I like to bounce from left to right. So there's those two. Now I'm gonna go here and here. And I'm not killing it. You'll notice I'm not grabbing the wrench up here. I'm actually grabbing it from here. And there's a reason why. I'm just trying to get everything to the same rough torque spec, especially these little bolts. Okay, do it again. But this is part of the reason why I use silicone or RTV just slightly on the gasket there, because it's gonna help with any soft threads that I can't really get a whole lot of torque to in fear of stripping, right? Not that I'm not tightening them where they need to be, but it's just an added help. Okay, let's pull the filter off. Funny fact, I've had this filter wrench since I was a kid. Came from my dad, and it's withstood a shop fire and moving, damn near being homeless for the last, hell, I don't even know, 20 years. Pretty legit. Okay, we've got a drain pan underneath, just in case. I got a rag handy, also just in case, because the last thing we want to do is make a mess. You can see it's already starting to oil itself a little bit. Yeah, look at that. Black, which actually I'm not upset about, because if it was creamy or milky, then I'd be concerned. especially with this motor sitting for the last 10 plus years. But check this out, nice and black. Just hasn't been changed in a while. So we're gonna let that sit right there. And we're gonna go get our new filter and get it ready. Okay, new filter, Wix 51258. Real simple, real simple. So the first thing that I'm gonna do, a lot of people like to put these filters in dry. I'm not a fan of that. If you're able to put oil in the filter before you put it in the motor, I suggest doing so. The other thing that a lot of people do is they'll just stick it in there dry. You don't really want to do that. You want to take the O-ring and lubricate the O-ring here just a little bit. All you're doing is a pinch. So I take my finger after I know it's clean, dip it in the motor oil, and I put it around the face of that O-ring to make sure that it's well lubricated. It's a good thing you guys can't look me in the eye while I'm doing this. Now we're gonna take a quart and pour it in there. And depending on the filter, it may take an entire quart, it may take a half a quart, don't know. But what you will notice is I'll start filling it up and it'll come to the very, very top and then it'll start draining down right about there. So you wanna give it some time, right? You can over-explain an oil filter and how to fill it and how to install it, but there's right ways and wrong ways. A lot of marine performance engines actually have an upside down filter housing on the engine. So, you wouldn't be able to do this. You would quite literally have to put the filter on with the O-ring lubed, dry, upside down, put it on, and then fire the motor up for it to fill up. But we're gonna take advantage of the filter being right side up, and it's still bubbling. You can see it going down every time I pour a little bit in. That's it right there. So the oil stopped just below the threads, which is just right. Okay, back to the motor. Gonna clean off the filter housing here and make sure that there is not a magical secondary O-ring on there. Sometimes they will stick if the filter doesn't really want to come off, and that is a catastrophic leak, so you don't want to do that. I have cleaned off the top. There was a pool of oil there, so that's no longer present. It might be just a little bit, which we could take a clean side of the rag and clean up if you really wanted to, whatever. Let's put this puppy on. And this is another common misconception with oil filters. People will tighten it to about there, and then they'll put a wrench on it and just go 3, 4, 5 times. You don't need to do that. That ring, that O-ring is thick. So it's gonna seal really, really well. What I usually do is, if you can, grab 2 hands and tighten it the rest of the way. That's it. Okay, let's dump oil in her. Okay, we're gonna start with 4 quarts. And we're gonna let it sit for a minute and make sure that everything looks good. I'm sure it's gonna use more than 4 quarts. But for starters, you don't want to overfill it. But you'll notice I'm really pouring it primarily directly on the lifters, kind of down the center. You want to make sure that you're lubricating your camshaft, any of the holes that you see. I don't see any drippy on the floor, so that's a good sign. The dipstick tube came totally out when we pulled the motor, actually before we even pulled the motor. So we're gonna need to silicone that in, but I've got it tossed in there just so that we can get a good accurate measurement for right now, and then we'll pull it back out before the motor goes in. That way we can make sure that it doesn't get ripped out or anything like that. I'm gonna pour just a dab in the distributor hole because we're gonna prime the motor at some point before putting it back in the boat, and we don't want anything dry, especially in an Oldsmobile. You are asking for problems if you do. Okay, there's 4. We're gonna let it sit for just a couple minutes, and then we're gonna check the oil level. It's safe to say I think that this is a 5-quart oil pan, but you never go off of that. You always want to be checking. So I usually pull the dipstick, wipe it clean if it's the first wipe, and you'll see, I don't know if you can see it or not, but it says add 1 quart, a couple dots, and then full. So we want it to go right up to that full line. But also remember, this is in a boat, so it's tilted slightly back more. So that's something that we want to take into consideration. So realistically, we only want this to be I don't know, just below the full line. I'd say maybe 1/8 of an inch below the full line. Oh yeah, so we're 1/3 above the add 1 quart line. I don't know if you guys can tell, but it's right there. You can kind of see it shine when I twist it back and forth. So we're gonna add another quart. In fact, before we even add a quart, just to be super safe, I'm gonna finish it off with the quart that we already opened to put in the oil filter. Drink. Sounds like me on a Friday night. I swear I'm not an alcoholic. This is a kids-friendly show. Sometimes, unless Tyler's around, then it's really not. I'm just kidding. Tyler's not that bad. He's an idiot, but he's not that bad. Survey says, well, look at that. Damn near right where we want it. Right about there. It's hard to tell on the camera, and it's also hard to tell even in real life when you have fresh oil. Sometimes it's hard to read, but you gotta get it in the light and really look at one way or the other, and you'll be able to see it a little bit better. But yeah, we're pretty much on the money, and we still have 1 fresh quart just in case we put this thing in and it for some reason needs more. We've got it. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna get the intake runners on the cylinder heads all cleaned up, which Dave did a killer job, but I just like to spot check places. We're gonna apply our RTV on the chines and set the intake on. Guys, I need your attention for just a minute. You're looking at me standing in the brand new West Coast River Outlaws shop right in Arlington, Texas. So if you want your boat on our YouTube channel and need repair work, whether it's fiberglass, rigging, engine repair, pump repair, V-drives, outboards, IOs, doesn't matter. Give us a call and holler. We're here to help you. Well, we've come into a problem. I was getting everything ready and prepped to put the intake on the Oldsmobile, and as you can see, we've got 2 broken studs here. Actually, it's funny enough, one of them was already busted. You can tell it's got a dark top to it, which means that it's seen water and moisture since before us. But the other one just now, I went to go loosen and it snapped right off. But we're gonna figure out how to get these out. There's a couple different ways that we can do it, and I'm praying to whatever higher power there is that these will come out easy. I'm not expecting them to though. So we've doused it in WD-40, and I think what I'm gonna do is take a hammer and gently tap each one and then put a set of vice grips on them and see if I can't get them to move at all. If that doesn't happen, then we've got to go to plan B, which is gonna be a death wheel, cutting these puppies off and then drilling and tapping them out. Either way, it's about to be a bitch. So I'm hoping that that creates a little bit of a shock and breaks whatever is holding it and locking in place off. Okay, we're gonna take some vice grips. Say a silent prayer for me. I really need a better pair of vice grips. Nope, she ain't moving at all. Now all I'm doing is spinning the wrench over the threads, so looks like we're gonna be grinding it off and tapping it. Not what I wanted to do this morning, but it is what it is. Wish me luck. Safety gear's a must. If you've ever had eye injuries, they are not fun. So I'm gonna take my death wheel here and I'm gonna try to cut it as flush as I can. And then from there, we'll have to basically take a small drill bit and go right down the center and slowly open it up. That's all you can do. Those puppies are hot, do not touch. Ask me how I know. We're gonna let them cool down a little bit, and then we're gonna find a way to lock the intake down, probably with a C-clamp on the table, so we can really get a drill bit in the center and do our best to drill her out. First thing I'm gonna do before I start drilling is find the center as best as I can. And I've got a punch, a metal punch. I'm gonna make a divot in it. That way my drill bit stays stationary and doesn't walk. Let's see how well this works. So I'm going nice and slow with my drill bit. These are new. You don't want to go super fast, because if you do that, you actually will cause the drill bit to burn out and lose its strength, and it's sharpened the tip. So I'm just going nice and slow. And unfortunately, this is going to be a process. You have to basically start with one of the smallest drill bits you got, get it as center as you can, and then one drill bit size at a time go up. Necessary evil, unfortunately, in this situation. And it doesn't hurt to pull out and re-lubricate. I'm center-ish. We broke all the way through, which is good. Essentially what I'm doing here is I'm eating away the material, because right now its strength is coming from the entire bolt being rusted and locked up in there. So if you start in the center and slowly open that hole, there's less and less material that's stuck in the threads to where we might possibly get an easy out in there, which I'll talk to you guys about that in just a minute. Don't just trust an easy out to work. The other thing is, I'm using WD-40. The best thing to use is gonna be a cutting oil. It's what you would see guys on like mills and drill presses and stuff using. That's really the right thing to use, but I don't have any. The other thing is, I'm not applying a whole bunch of pressure. It might look like I'm putting my whole body weight on it, but I'm really not. I'm getting as close to the drill bit as I can personally, because I want to make sure that it's angled properly and and all that good stuff. Fourth. Hole is getting bigger. 5:30 seconds. Oh, fuck. And that's what you don't want to do. I just snapped my drill bit in there. Let's see, how do I get that out now? Hopefully. You know, it's funny, I was just about to tell you guys, don't snap your drill bit by applying too much pressure. And as you can see, it don't take much. Well, at this point, we are just gonna try our hardest to open it up as much as we can without doing that again. So I've done this once before, and the solution was to take a pick like this and break the remaining drill bit out, and it's a pain in the ass. So we might just be getting lucky. Watch, this will break off in it now. I see daylight, which means that we did, in fact, get the drill bit out. Talk about a success story. Okay, let's keep going and break another one. Okay, that there was a 15/64 drill bit. We started at 1/16. I'll give you guys an example. You see what you gotta do? You really have to start small and work your way up. It is tedious, it takes a lot of time, but unfortunately it is necessary. So now we have a couple of different options. Option number one is gonna be taking a easy out and putting it in there and twisting backwards where the threads are reversed, and it bites in and hopefully twists the rest of this out. Option B is to drill and tap this all the way through and put a helicoil in. A helicoil is essentially brand new threads that you put inside of a hole that's already been damaged. And I gotta even see if I've got a helicoil that size. But let's see what an easy out looks like. Well, I thought I had a easy out of the proper size, but I don't. This is the only one I got, so that's not gonna fly. An easy out, like I said, the threads go backwards. So usually the old saying, lefty loosey, righty tighty, is actually opposite when you're using a helicoil. You're gonna open the hole about a third of the way of this, or bigger if you can, and you thread this in, and when you turn left, it tightens, therefore hoping to loosen up that bolt. That's one option. The second option is what's called a helicoil. A helicoil is quite literally new threads that get threaded into the hole. So you would drill the hole to the outside size of the new threads, this here. You tap it to the appropriate tap that they suggest that you do, and then you install this and punch out the back end little tab. That's what locks it into place. then you have brand new threads of the original size of the bolt, which is probably gonna be what we have to do. So yeah, I guess I'm going to the store and picking up a new helicoil set. Upon further investigation, I actually found my small easy outs. So there's a certain way to do this, and you've got to be careful, because if you're not, you can break these off in there and then you're just having a really bad day. You'll notice my bigger one doesn't really go in there. My smaller one does, and it actually goes quite a bit in there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna try my best to center this thing. Gonna give it a whacka to seat the threads and let it bite. And then I'm gonna get a crescent and pray to God that this thing comes out. If for some reason it feels like this thing is gonna bind or break, you stop like that. It's not even wanting to come. You see, I've got quite a bit of pressure on it, and the last thing I wanna do is snap an easy out in there. We got lucky with our drill bit. I'm not gonna sacrifice this. So it looks like we're gonna be drilling this out bigger and going with a new set of threads, which essentially is a helicoil set. Okay, we ran to the local hardware store, and this is a thread repair kit, also known as a helicoil set. It gives you the wrench to thread in your new threads, as well as the tap associated to the outside of this thread. You'll notice on it, it also says drill size 21/64, which essentially means that you need to drill this hole out to a 21/64 size, so that when you apply your tap, these are able to thread in. So we're gonna take it all the way up to a 21/64 and go from there. This is why it's critical to be center. See, it doesn't want to catch it. So I think what I'm gonna have to do is hammer out the threads around it as best as I can, because the little bit remaining on the left is catching the side of the drill bit and pushing the drill bit down, not center. So let's see what happens here. I'm willing to bet I can get a easy out and pull that out. Still can't. Wondering if I'm gonna be able to get it like this. I can see it moving, so we're making progress. I got her loose. I can wiggle it like a toddler's first tooth. That might be in there. Just a little bit. Oh, yep, here she comes, I think. Bada bing. Success. So now those threads are probably gacked, which means that we got to drill this out to a 21/64. Critical that we keep the same angle, because you don't want the bolt to go in sideways, because then your mounting flange on whatever you're trying to mount won't line up. So let's drill it out with a 5/16, and then we'll go up to a 21/64. Cast iron is not forgiving.
Probably my WD-40 to help get that through.
Yep, magical Bill came in at the perfect time. I wouldn't have been able to do it without him. All right, let's open up our new package. All right, Bill looked it up. It is recommended to use blue Loctite when doing helicoil or thread repair inserts. So we are gonna do that. But before we do that, we need to actually get the new threads installed. So they give you a tap that matches the size of the outside of the new thread repair. If I can get one out, I'll show you. Once it's sprung out, those match, okay? So we're gonna put our tap in. We've already lubed it. I'm looking dead center down the middle of the hole to get it as straight as possible, and you'll feel it start biting. Verify again. Bill's gonna lube me up before I put myself in the hole, like a true homie. And once I get probably 4 or 5 rotations in, I back it up and then go forward. And what you're doing is you're catching the metal shavings that you're shaving off of it, and you're putting it into the areas that don't have threads on the tap. So essentially by backing up, you're cleaning out your threads as you go. Now this intake goes all the way through. So essentially we're gonna run the tap all the way down until I can look through there and see it protrude out the bottom. And actually, once you start getting near the end, it'll get really easy. And I can see it protruding out the bottom. So we're gonna pull it out and you can see all the metal that I pulled off. Now you can use air and blow it off. Our compressor's not on, so we're gonna use some brake clean. Brake clean, just off to the side. All over my legs, it's good. And then we're gonna go one more time just to make sure that there's no boogers in here. And I can thread this whole thing in by hand. Picked up a little bit more, but not much. Let it dry. And then we're gonna install our helicoil. All right, so they give you this little T-handle. It's got a little lip on the end of it. You're gonna put this through like so. And you're gonna apply just a little bit of blue Loctite on the threads. When you thread this down, you want the very end of the threads to be just below the surface of whatever you're using. And that's it, right about there. Then from here, if you get a helicoil brand, it actually gives you a nice rod that you can actually hit on the top to break that little tab. So we're gonna use this, and you just give it a nice whack, and it'll break that tab to where the bolt can go all the way through. So now, if I use a 5/16 bolt, this puppy should thread right in. And obviously it's gonna get a little bit tight once we get to the bottom, but that's good. Okay, I don't think you guys need to see me bang my head against this table while I do the other side, but on to the next side. Here we are. It is time to mount the intake. We got some stuff that we've got to do first though. I want to show you some things. Here's our hardware. We're going to use the existing hardware, but something that you guys need to think about is there's long ones and there's short ones. If you look at the intake, you'll notice a bolt hole goes here and then also here. It's thinner here and it's thicker here. So it's pretty obvious where the big bolts are gonna go and the small bolts are gonna go. The other thing that we need to remember is that there is a throttle plate. This is your hold down to hold the throttle cable on. So we need to make sure that we install that as well. So we've got all that stuff. Everything's cleaned up, ready to go. We need to apply our RTV, the right stuff, and get going on it. So the first thing we've got to think about is our gasket. You'll notice that the SCE gaskets that we're using have a little silicone bead that naturally goes around it. That's gonna help seal the runner to the runner on the cylinder, but there isn't any on the backside. So what I personally like to do is apply a small thin bead of silicone around each hole, and it helps solidify that it's going to seal. You'll notice that they give you these end piece gaskets that go on the chine. Typically what they're gonna do is they're gonna push in through the hole here and mount just like that. Do not use these. These have a notorious reputation of leaking on the front and the back, especially in the corners where the cylinder meets the block and the intake. We take these and we throw them away. We use the Right Stuff gasket maker. So here's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna apply a very small film, and I'm not applying a real thick, heavy bead. This is literally here just to help the gasket sit. And it does theoretically apply a little bit of sealant help, but it's mostly there to help keep the gasket sitting. Like I said, this is here just to help keep the gasket there and not walk when we put the intake on. It's extra important in this scenario too, because the intake is a factory cast iron intake. So she's heavy. Well, what we're fighting right now is the bolt holes they line up pretty much everywhere up until about these two, no matter what way you rotate the gasket. So we may be looking at a different set of gaskets, because I'm not necessarily a fan of these. They look cool, they're really nice. I mean, but that's not right. So we gotta notch these 2 holes. Should just thread right in like that. So I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the gaskets off, clean up our gunk, and take it to the bench. Open these 2 up just a little bit so that we've got some more room. Everything looks like it's supposed to. I mean, all the way down to the cutouts for this area of the cylinder head. It matches and lines up, but the problem is the bolt holes here are just slightly off, and that could just be a manufacturer issue. So we're gonna take it off, put it to the bench, and fix it. While that is setting, we're gonna come back in and apply our RTV on the chines here. So you wanna put a pretty decent bead here because the intake sits up top and it can not seal if you don't have it high enough. Especially the corners here, you wanna make sure that they touch proper. And what you're looking for when you put the intake down is that to squish. That's critical. So we're gonna let that sit for just a minute. So now we're just gonna suck them all down to where they're flush, and then we'll put them in the torque sequence and get them all tight. Now we're gonna start with our in and go out. So I'm gonna do this one, come back over here, jump here, jump here. You know, things may change in the world and everything is all turmoil and crazy, but the ice cream truck will always be around. They're the true heroes. Okay, so we got them all. You noticed I bounced, right? What we're doing is we're tightening the intake from the inside and working our way out. So we're gonna go over it again. You'll notice this one got loose. It's because the whole intake's tight now and it's starting to suck down more. And basically, you continue doing this pattern until all of them feel just about even. While Bill is scrubbing his life away, we're gonna work on priming the engine now that the intake is on. So where the distributor goes, there's a little stud or a little post that comes out. That is a 5/16 socket. So we're gonna put that down in there, and then we're gonna hook the drill up to this and rotate it clockwise. And essentially what we're doing is we're manually spinning the oil pump in the bottom of the oil pan, and that's gonna push oil up through our rocker arms through the push rods. You can see the little hole. That's how they lubricate themselves. Drill, let's see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't spray out of our loose dipstick. Yep, we got oil in these 2. You got oil in there. Got oil coming out of this one. These 2 now. So we're getting there. And there's that one. Okay, let's check the other side, see what she looks like. We've had motors that take forever to lubricate. We've been on the drill for 30, 45 minutes, Dave.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's just how it is. They all peeing?
Yep.
Beautiful, it's that easy. So if your motor's been sitting for a while, it's imperative that you do that, because if you dry fire it, motor runs and it takes a minute for the oil to come up to the top. You're going metal to metal without any pre-lubrication, and that can be very, very detrimental. That's an easy way to wear and tear your equipment quick and have a problem. So we're gonna clean up. Bill's gonna finish scrubbing his life away to the point of no return on the valve covers, and we're gonna paint the intake, the valve covers, and then pretty much get it ready for reinstallation. Damn, Bill. You missed a spot right there. Yeah. And also right here.
This
yeah.
spot?
Yeah, that spot right there. Time to drill some holes in the hull of the Taylor SS. What we're gonna work on installing today is the water pressure relief valve. These are important, in my opinion, because it eliminates and regulates actually the water pressure going into your engine. These jet pumps are really big water pumps, and they can pump a lot of pressure. And the problem is too much water pressure in an engine can actually blow out seals, head gaskets, intake manifold gaskets, all sorts of problems. And then you can run into water essentially going where it shouldn't in the oil galley and stuff like that, which causes a milkshake and all sorts of bad stuff. Considering the fact that we're working with an Oldsmobile, it is critical that we give it as much support as we can. And one of the things that we're gonna support it with is a pressure relief valve system. So we've got our pressure relief valve, we've got our water dump. There's a couple other things that we need, but for now, this is what we're gonna start with. In fact, we're not even gonna start with this. We're gonna start with the water dump, okay? This came from Hardin Marine. It's a nice, basically aluminum water dump with a nice long shank to go through the transom. And if we take a pair of calipers and measure the shank diameter, not the head, but the shank, it's 3/4 of an inch. So we have our hole saw and we have our pilot drill bit. So we need to go find center of the boat where we're gonna put this and drill a pilot hole and then drill a 3/4 inch hole. So we're at the transom of the boat, and you guys probably can't see it because of the blue tape and the black Sharpie mark, but we basically took a measurement from both sides of the gunnel and the transom where they connect and found center where we're gonna put the water dump. This here is for his bilge, and he doesn't have a water dump for the engine because this uses water logs. The water comes out directly through the exhaust and keeps the exhaust cool. So that's why he's only got one hole here. So to keep everything looking nice, we're gonna put one directly above it. I already checked the inside. It's not in the way of anything and it'll look clean. So we took a measurement here and found center, and then we went on that side and came in and found pretty much dead nuts center here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with a pilot hole. You never wanna start with the actual hole saw drill bit because it is slightly bigger and it will waller and walk a little bit, and we want to be as precise as we can. So I've got I think this was a 5/64 drill bit. It's really tiny, that's what you gotta remember. And we're gonna put it right on the dot and drill our hole. We got our 3/4 inch hole saw, which is just slightly smaller than the diameter of the shank on the water outlet. And that's okay. If we need to take a round file and open it up just a little bit, you'd rather do that than have the hole too big and now you're screwed. Put it right in the center, and here we go. So you'll notice I'm going backwards first. Going backwards helps when you have a really sharp bit. It will actually not chip away the gel coat, and it helps you bite first. Fiberglass is a lot softer than metal, so you can start backwards and it will still cut. Looks center. Here's our water dump. Bada bing. Looks good to me. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the tape off. We're gonna put a small bead of silicone around the face, the inside face of the shank. That way it seals. And then we're gonna tighten this puppy on and go to the inside of the boat to finish up. So we're on the inside of the boat, and you can see you've got your bilge, which is nice and tight now, and we actually have our water outlet, or I guess I should say water inlet. This comes from the Berkeley pump. We have a couple different styles of pumps. There's the Berkeley JG or JC, which is gonna be kind of the standard of what you see. And then they made the E-pump. The E-pump was an insert style pump where, if you can see here, the actual hull itself has a built-in sleeve, if you will, where the pump quite literally bolts in and epoxies into this little sleeve in the bottom of the hull. What they do is they add a hole next to the pump where it goes inside, and the Berkeley JE has a tube that comes out, and this is your water pickup. This is where the pump pushes water through and goes into your motor and feeds your motor water. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a pressure relief valve, which is gonna be this bad boy right here. Like I said before, the pressure relief valve is going to help limit how much water pressure goes into your block. You're not trying to cram a ton of water pressure into your block. You're trying to get volume. This is regulated, don't quote me on this, I want to say it's like 14 to 16 pounds. So anything over 14 to 16 pounds of water pressure is going to come out here and go out the water outlet that we drilled in last week. This is a 3/8 NPT fitting, and this is a 1/2 inch water pressure relief valve. So the whole entire system is 1/2 inch. I got a brass adapter that go from 3/8 to 1/2 inch. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna install our T and then continue building it from there. Make sure that when you use your tape, you go with the thread, so that way when you tighten it, tighten your fitting, it doesn't unravel your tape. And then try your hardest to not fray it like I did right there. It's not a big deal, but just keeping things looking clean, that's all. Very carefully, we're gonna get our high quality crescent wrench and tighten this puppy. You can see I'm not using an AN wrench because an AN wrench wouldn't fit over this. So as long as you're super careful and the crescent is not obnoxiously loose on the fitting, you can typically get away with doing this and have good luck in not scratching anything. Next, got our pressure relief valve here, and we got our fitting. Okay, there's one. Okay, everything's nice and tight. So water comes in, headed towards the block. It's gonna go into this T. This pressure relief valve is gonna sense anything over 14 to 16 pounds of water pressure, and it's gonna come out here. There's gonna be a hose that comes up here, and I don't know if you can see, but it'll come out to our new bulkhead fitting that we put on the back of the boat. Everything underneath 14 to 16 pounds will come straight out as traditional, go into the water line, and go up into the motor. Look at this gem of an Oldsmobile. Dave has been grinding away getting this thing ready to rock and roll while I haven't been here. I swear I'm not slacking off. But check this out. We got the new freeze plugs in with a little bit of Loctite, and they are brass, not stainless steel. You wanna make sure in a marine application you're using brass, not steel. It's gonna help with essentially anti-corrosion. So that looks good. The oil's been changed, spark plugs are in, the new fuel pump's in. You can see we've got an MSD ready to run distributor in there, and we're getting ready to lift it up and stab it in the boat. There's a couple things once it gets off of the engine stand that need to happen. It needs to have its flex plate put back on, the bell housing get put back on, the engine cradle system, the motor mount assembly underneath the oil pan, and whatnot. So Dave's got a little bit more time to be able to get that prepped and ready to go. In the meantime, we got to climb back into the boat and mount our battery switch and our fuel water separator. We're back over at the bench, and I'm going to show you guys something that we're going to add in a pretty traditional factory setting. Right? You don't have a big, massive fuel pump. Your engine doesn't consume a massive amount of fuel because it's not a 700 horsepower heathen. It's okay to use stuff like this. I want to talk about what this is. This is a Sierra Marine fuel water separator. You can see the part number here, 18-7945. That's going to be for our fuel water separator. And you've got your top unit here. I think this thing online was like 50 bucks or something like that. It uses 3/8 NPT inlets. So you've got a 3/8 fuel line. It's perfect for what we're doing with the Oldsmobile. Again, in the name of protecting that thing. It did not have, in fact, a fuel water separator at all. It had a cheap plastic $7.99 5/16 fuel filter, inline fuel filter, when we first got it. So we're not gonna do that. We're gonna give it a little bit better of a life. Something to think about, you have inlets and you have outlets. Okay, so if you were using a dual tank system, you'd be able to feed 2 lines in, and then you could have 1 line out and plug the other. In our situation, we only have 1 tank, so this, where I'm gonna mount it, is on the starboard side close to the tank, and we're gonna have it come in this way, and we're gonna have it come out that way. So we're gonna plug these 2 settings right here. We decided to opt in and get new stainless steel plugs versus the ones that come with it. It does come with brass fittings, and that's fine, but I like a little bit of flash, and some stainless steel fittings are not a bad deal. We've also got new 3/8 to 3/8 hose barbs, right? So these are gonna be what feed the fuel filter as well as feed the motor, and it'll sit just like that. So we're gonna pull these off, put plumber's tape on them, and then we're gonna go find the spot in the boat to mount them and send it on its way. It's time. Motor's ready to rock and roll, so we're gonna raise it up, clear some room out, and then we're gonna stab this puppy in and send it home. So we got the wiring pretty much happy for now, and I'm sitting here thinking about what to do next, and we can mock up the exhaust and see the distance between the end of the riser here, which you might be able to see, and the exhaust tip flange. So we're gonna mock this up with a couple of bolts and take a measurement between there, and then cut our exhaust hose to fit that. And then we'll go to the other side and do the same thing. So we're gonna lift this thing, kind of in a bad spot. Where's the hole? Sitting right on my chest. It's hard to breathe. Shut up, Dave. Got them started. We're gonna tighten them up just a little bit, and then I'll take the camera back here and show you guys what I'm looking at. So from flange to flange, it's 6 1/4. The whole reason it looks like it doesn't line up is because the bolt holes aren't tight all the way up, holding the exhaust on. But once we do that, that should be lined up pretty well. Plus the exhaust has a little bit of flex in it, so even if those aren't dead nuts perfect, it'll be okay. So 6 1/2 will give us some wiggle room.
6 1/2 will be perfect.
So they make special tools to do this, but we don't have those. So I'm gonna get a death wheel and some safety glasses and send it, and hope to God I'm straight. So exhaust hose is special because it has an inside metal coil, I guess, to keep its strength and keep its roundness. So we need to take some snips and cut that off, or actually, I'll tell you what we're gonna do right now. There's our first boot. That'll fit nice and tight. Good and tight.
Good and tight.
Looks like it's sitting well. Well enough.
5 1/2 looks good on this one.
5 1/2. Yeah. Okay. So interesting enough, you got to remember engines can't be exactly symmetrical where both sides of the engine in a V8 are exactly parallel with each other. There's got to be some kind of a stagger. So this side, the driver's side or port side, was 6 1/2, and that side is 5 1/2. So that kind of gives you an idea of how much of a difference the motor is going to be staggered. So back to the bench. And then obviously don't forget to spray it out. You can use a air chuck and blow your stuff out, or you can use a carb cleaner, but you want to get all that junk out. All right, here's the driver's side. Fits as it should, but we need to blow it off first, so let's do that. Brake cleaner. Okay, driver side, or passenger side next. Dave's been busting ass. Carburetor's on, battery's in, wiring's pretty much done. We're almost ready to fire her up. Let's see how it goes. We're working on spark plug wires right now. The blue ones are there just as a temporary. We wanted to see if it actually kicked and ran, and surprisingly enough, it did. So that's a great sign. But one of the biggest tasks that we have that we haven't done yet is cleaned the fuel tank. So we drained all the fuel out of it, and actually our local waste management company was able to dispose of that for us. So if you guys have the same issue, reach out to your local disposal company and see what kind of programs they have for the city that you live in. You know, do the right thing, make sure that it's not getting dumped on the side of the road. But let's go to the bench and show you what we're working on now. Okay, here's our fuel tank. When we dumped everything out of it, it had tons of sediment, and it was really bad. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna clean it on the outside, and then basically put a whole shit ton of acetone in it and shake it around and get as much junk as we can out of it until it comes clean. We pulled the fuel sending unit out because obviously that's something that's old and has to be replaced. We were hoping that we might get lucky and not have to replace it, but clearly, as you can see, that's not the case. We actually have a broken wire right here that goes to one of the sides of the float. So we'll have to look into getting one of these. There's a part number right here, actually, now that I'm looking at it, and we might get lucky. That could very well be a 1994 stamp, which doesn't surprise me even in the slightest. So we'll look into that here in a little bit. In the meantime, we're gonna work on getting it clean. I wanna get the outside of it clean because I'm really not interested in shaking this thing up and hugging it and being close to it when it's all dirty and filthy. So we're gonna work on cleaning that and then clean the inside. Before we begin, I wanna take the fuel pickup out and just look at it. Chances are it's clogged, so we're gonna pull it out and look at it real quick. Probably clean that out with some brake cleaner. This is a top fed mount tank, so it's gonna have a big long hose in it. Yeah, that wasn't gonna suck up anything. It's nice and clogged. Oh, look at that. It's not clogged anymore. Doesn't matter. We're going to clean this thing up anyways and make sure it's happy hunky-dory before we put it back in. Dave came over and handed me a Scotch-Brite. This is a soft one, not the green one. And it actually seems to be doing wonders. Well, the outside of the tank is as clean as it's gonna get. I ain't trying to do a polish job on this thing, but it's a lot better. So, I've got a thing of acetone. Acetone eats through a lot of stuff, including paint. So if you guys aren't careful, if you get this stuff around paint, it will eat it away. Powder coat, anodizing, paint, bunch of other stuff. It's okay around gel coat though, as long as you're not soaking the gel coat. So we're gonna use the acetone to break up the varnish that's inside of this tank. It's had fuel in it for the last 10 plus years, so it comes out all like, not emeraldy, but like amber color and like syrup. So this is gonna help break it apart, and hopefully we can get this thing clean. There's that. I'm just gonna bear hug this thing and shake it a couple times. Lean it this way, lean it that way. I can almost guarantee you I'm gonna end up using all of the acetone that we've got, because I had it upside down to clean the bottom earlier off camera, and it was pissing that amber junk everywhere. So it definitely has some stuff in it, and I'm hoping to get most of it out. The other thing you can do is if you've got a bucket of bolts hanging around, you can actually put some of those smaller bolts in here with the acetone, and you can break up some of the stuff that might be in it. Okay, let's dump this to start and see what it looks like. Oh, nasty. Yeah, we're gonna have to do this a couple times. All right, let's see what it looks like. It's less creamy. We're getting there. All right, let's do it again. Okay, let's see. Getting better. All right, let's use a little gasoline this time. Let's see. Pretty clear. Almost there. Maybe one more time, maybe two. Okay. After I clean up my mess, tank will be ready for install. We got to replace the bottom bolts that went in that were countersunk. They were not stainless steel, so we're very lucky to have gotten those out. We're gonna replace that hardware and put this puppy in. It's time. We're gonna see what she does. Dude, hell yeah. It almost makes me want to fill the carburetor bowls and go.
I know, man.
That's great. Boy, it fired right up.
Yeah.
Just a pinch of starting fluid. Well, that's a huge success. Dave's been busting his ass on this thing. I've been helping as well. And we're getting real close to the end here. We got a couple things to do. I just remembered I got to add a kill switch. It's Texas law to have one of those. We need to mount the fuel tank and run that system. And then just little odds and ends. Put the interior back. We're waiting on a spark arrestor to show up. Cables, all that good stuff. And then we should be hitting the water for a test. In the meantime, we're gonna pull this thing out and make room for the V-Drive to come out, because this weekend we've got a special event that the peeps from Texas Hot Boats puts together every year. So we're gonna go hit that on the Brazos. So we're gonna roll this thing out and get the V-Drive going. So we'll see you probably tomorrow to finish working on this thing. So we're gonna work on hooking up the remaining items for the fuel tank. The through bolts on the bottom are gonna require two people. One to hold the bottom bolt and then the other one on the top to tighten it. So once Dave gets here, we can manage that. But in the meantime, we can hook up the fuel fill tube. We can hook up the fuel feed line. We can hook up the breather line. And until the fuel sending unit gets here, we can't finish the wiring, but that's okay. It's already here and it's ready to go for when that time comes. So we're gonna take a measurement, get this kind of where we think it needs to go, and then we're gonna take a measurement from the fuel neck, the fill neck, as well as the cap here up top. It's also got a barb on it, and we're gonna cut our hose to match. We've got our proper fuel US Coast Guard safety and approved fuel fill, and we're gonna get to cutting. So I brought one bolt over that would go up from the bottom. You can see I'm using a countersunk screw, but just to make sure that we are lined up with our existing holes, I'm gonna put one in so that we know we are right where we need to be, right there. And this is gonna go a little bit this way. It's a little off. But again, once we get all four bolts in, we should be just fine. Let's get a measurement. So it's about 9 3/4 from the top of the transom or the gunnel, top of the gunnel down to the very bottom of the fuel neck. So we're gonna cut probably to 9 inches. That way it gives us a little bit of room to go up and down, and then we're gonna install that. gonna try and squeeze my fat ass in there. We got our new hose that's cut to length. We've got our 2 hose clamps, and then we've got our 5/16 socket. So this is gonna be exciting. It's hard to see, but I think I might even need to cut it a little bit more. So we're gonna go back and cut maybe a 1/2 inch off, just to give us a little bit of play. Remember, when I first took a measurement, the measurement was from the very bottom of the neck on the tank all the way to the top of the gunnel. And climbing up in there and looking, the downspout actually sticks down about a 1/2 inch, an inch to a 1/2 inch below the gunnel. So we're gonna take that off of this so we've got a little bit of wiggle room to get it up in there. Okay, there's our 1/2 inch. Let's check it out. Much better. Okay. Now, I'm gonna put one of these clamps on. Yeah. Okay, that one's on. And what I'm gonna do, get the top clamp installed so that it doesn't slide off when I move the tank back. Okay, that's on good and tight. I'm gonna pull my bolt out down here so that I can actually shimmy the tank a little bit. Let's get our other clamp. Make sure that puppy's facing the same way. And we're gonna try and move this simultaneously so that she slides on at the same time. Looks good. All right, let's tighten these puppies up. I always recommend using a socket on hose clamps, because if you're not careful using a flathead screwdriver, you can strip it out or stab yourself. And when you go to try and tighten it as much as you can, you just can't really get there. But with a ratchet and a socket, typically you can. So the bottom clamp is on. I'm gonna go to the top, get the top done. Fuel fill neck is installed. So now you can see the little itty bitty fuel outlet. That's what feeds the fuel system up to the carburetor. We're gonna hook that hose up next, and then we're gonna build a line for our tank breather, which is way over here and you can't see that. So this was cut a little long because we weren't sure, but as you can see, I don't know if you can see, it don't take very much line. So we're gonna cut some of this off so it looks nice and clean, and get our 3/8 hose clamp and install it. Off camera, we actually removed the fuel pickup line and doused it with carburetor cleaner to make sure that everything was clear out of that too. I was thinking about that and realized as I was doing it, you guys didn't see that, but we did that. It blows totally fine, so we shouldn't have any blockage there. Good morning. Today is the day. We are going to roll Dustin's boat outside, hook it up to some water, and see if we can make this thing live after sitting in a field for, I think he said 10, I think he even said 15 years. Which is pretty exciting. I'm really stoked to see what happens here. So we've got the motor in, we've got the timing pretty much right on top dead center. We're gonna hook up the water hose to it, hook up the timing light, get a couple of tools ready to rock and roll, and we're gonna roll it outside and see what happens. But here's what it looks like as it is right now. Night and day difference. Brand new MSD ready to run with a blaster coil. Got a new battery. We fiberglassed an area where the battery tray was because the old one was just soft. Couldn't get in there. We put a battery switch in. We put a new bilge blower in. You've got the fuel water separator way back there. You might be able to see it. But we've got all that handled and ready to rock and roll. We also put a new fuel sending unit in, which we pulled the old one out and found the part number, and was luckily able to get the exact same one. And the reason we did that was because these bolt patterns, I didn't want to have to drill new holes or open them up or anything like that. So we got the same exact one. Yeah, got fuel in it. We primed the fuel filter, so there's already fuel in that as well. We put fuel in the carburetor bowls, so we took a water bottle, poked a little hole in the front or in the cap, put 93 octane in it, and filled the float bowls. You can see fuel moving in there by our little vents here. Right, so you just wrap a towel around it, you put fuel in it until you start seeing it either pee out of the venturis just a little bit, or you look in there and see it splashing around when you shake the boat. So we should theoretically be good to go to fire this thing up and see what it does. So a couple things we're gonna do real quick. We're gonna hook up our timing light. This is just a conventional timing light that you can get at O'Reilly, AutoZone, any of your local auto parts stores. And you know, this thing doesn't have any crazy special features to it. It is just a traditional big block Oldsmobile, so this will work just fine. You need to hook up your leads, right? So first and foremost, we've got a lead here. This is going to be your spark. It essentially tracks every single spark that goes through your spark plug wire. I'm still trying to wake up, so bear with me. But you attach this to your number 1 cylinder spark plug wire. You also notice some of them will have a directional arrow that tells you where to go. This says plug with an arrow that way, so we want to make sure that this is hooked up like this. Oh, it's got it right there too. That way it tracks exactly which way the spark is going to, because it's going towards the spark plug or the cylinder. Number 1 going to be right there. And then you've also got your actual power leads, which is essentially going to be a positive and a negative that you will attach directly to your battery. And if you can't get to your battery, let's say you're trying to work on an old muscle car or something with a battery relocation kit that's got it in the back of the trunk, you can hook it to your alternator and then a ground on the engine if you wanted. But we can reach our battery, and that's going to be the best move for us. I'm going to hook it right there. Battery switch is on, and I can actually hear my timing light starting to make a little bit of noise inside, so I know it's working properly. What you can do, or what you will do actually, is there's a little timing mark indicator here that's stationary on the timing cover, and then your harmonic balancer will actually have notches in it that'll tell you exactly where the timing is. So we're gonna see where it's at idle, and then we're gonna see where it's at when we start giving it some acceleration or some throttle. We're gonna go probably all the way up to 3,000. That's assuming where it's gonna stop. So that's the first thing that we're gonna do. The next thing that we're gonna do is hook up our hose to an attachment point that we have right here that tees into our water line. This is gonna do one of two things. Number 1, it's gonna feed water to the pump. You never wanna run a jet pump dry or out of the water, especially if it's been sitting for a while, because the impeller will actually start to eat away at your wear ring and a bunch of other stuff that needs to be wet when you run it. That's the first thing. The second thing is obviously it's going to keep the engine cool. Now, given the fact that we've got water logs on this thing, the water from the engine does not in fact exit out the back of the boat from a little water outlet. It dumps from the engine directly into the exhaust, and that's how the water exits. So this does two things. Number 1, it's obviously going to keep the engine cool while we're running it, but number 2, it's also going to keep the exhaust cool since we're through transom here. Your rubber boots on the back will get smoking hot if you don't do this, and it's critical that you do that. The other thing too, though, that you want to think about is you don't want to kick this on with the motor not running right now. And the reason why is because you can, in fact, start to fill up the exhaust to where it backflows into the motor. And that can cause severe issues. You can get an exhaust valve to lock up. You can hydrolock your engine by putting water into the piston combustion chamber area. You just don't want to do that, and then obviously that will pee down into your oil pan. So you really don't want to do that. The proper method is to fire it up, let it run for a second or two, and then kick the water on and make sure that you've got good water flow in the thing. So because we have never ran this thing, we're gonna run it for just a second or two, make sure she idles on her own, does her own thing, and then we're gonna kick the water on. Okay, so I shut it off for two reasons. Number one, our water is going through the pump, which is great. That's awesome. We need that. The problem though is I think the outlet is too big going back to the pump, which is causing water to go primarily out of the pump and not actually cool this motor down, which it's not even hot yet. You know, you can see I can touch pretty much everywhere and it's fine. But we can't run it for very long that way because obviously the motor's gonna get hot and the rubber boots around the exhaust are gonna get hot and all that stuff. So we need to come up with a solution. I'll be right back. I gotta think about this for a second. Here's what we've done. Our water pressure here at the shop is not very strong, and I truly believe that that's what the deal is. So we've taken a pair of channel locks, or vice grips actually, and locked the back hose feeding the pump to where it's got water going to it, but it's not primarily feeding the pump. So we should now, when we fire it up, actually see some water come through the exhaust. So let's try again. I don't know. Still no water going to the pump. And we have a fuel leak on this side that we need to take a look at. Runs, it sounds really good, but like I said, we just can't run it for that long because of the water going to the exhaust. I still may not have enough water pressure to the to the water system. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But it runs really good. It sounds nice. The motor doesn't shake. I don't hear any major clanky noises or anything like that. We are going to need to hook up a throttle return spring, which is not a big deal. Once the throttle cable is on, it's going to have a throttle return spring within the hot foot itself, and we will also be able to still hook up a throttle return spring. It's always good to have two. So I'm going to tinker with this fuel leak over here and see if I can't find it. It should be pretty simple. It just looks like it's coming from the dual feed line, and then we'll come up with another solution on getting water to the exhaust. I don't know. I'm happy though. It runs great. We are here, Lake Arlington in Arlington, Texas, and you can see the Taylor is here. Gave her a quick wipe down, checked everything. She ran really good on the trailer after doing some stuff. We fixed a couple of water leaks, added a ball valve so that we can actually basically limit how much water goes into the pump during trailer run time. And we're here. And I'm excited and nervous at the same time because this boat hasn't seen the water in about 10 years. So we're gonna back her up into the water. I'm gonna take a look, climb in, check to see that everything is sealing on the transom. Pray to God, please. And then if everything goes well, we're gonna take her for a spin. So let's climb in the boat and take a look. Dude, I think we're good. Oh yeah, our cable seal right there's peeing. Not enough for me to worry about right now. Dude, I think that's it. That's pretty good. All right, so we're gonna get the strap off of the back. We're gonna run it on the trailer just for a minute, make sure it pumps water, all that good stuff. And then we'll take her for a spin. Has not seen water in 10 plus years, give or take, is what Dustin said. This isn't our first rodeo doing something crazy like this, but I don't know. I'm nervous. All right, so I guess back her up till the pump's in the water and then we'll fire it up, verify everything. I think it's coming from the center. You can see it right there. I'm not upset about that. Okay. Let's kick the battery switch on. I'll step on my sunglasses and fire it up. See water. Idle might need to come up a little bit. Now the choke is on, so you got to think about that. All I'm going to do is open it up just a little bit. You can see the water right about there. It's pushing some water, so that's a good sign. Let it warm up. Smoothing out just a little bit. So in the meantime, we're just gonna hang out, let it warm up, and go from there. The idle's actually turning up a little bit too as the choke opens up and stuff. It's pretty wild. Ooh, yeah. Look at that. Fog it. Put me in, Captain. A comfy boat. It's cool. I feel like I'm James Bond over here in a low down boat. I should be able to push a button on the dash and like machine guns come out, heat seeking missiles. We're gonna get Dave in the boat. We're gonna get everything all situated, and hopefully we're going for a boat ride here in just a minute. Pretty good. Boom! That's fantastic. I don't have any words right now. Actually, I lied. You know, I have one word.
Beer.
Beer. Boom. Dustin, I told you I was gonna do this. And he said, go for it. I can't wait to see. Cheers, brother.
Cheers.
Couldn't do without you, man. Up, it moves, all the cables are happy. Dude, this thing is badass.
Yeah.
He's gonna love this,
dude. I know.
thing.
All right, it's that time. We are out of beer. So that means it's time to hit the trailer. We're gonna fire her up, take it back to the shop, give her a wipe down, just a once over. We still have a couple things to do. As you guys heard, the starter still kicks and catches periodically, so we're gonna add a shim or maybe 2 shims. And then Dustin comes and picks up his boat in 2 days. And I really am excited to see what he says. And he already texted me because I sent him a couple videos of it running, and he's like, dude, this brings me back 10 years ago when my uncle and dad were alive running the boat. And that just is music to our ears, because that's exactly what we're looking for, is keeping the... damn.
Nice. 6.5.
Yeah. That's our goal, is to keep this thing alive, you know. And there's people like Dustin that have just relics in the back of their house, in the back of their shop, at the back of their yard, that hasn't seen the water in years, but it was their dad's or their grandpa's or something like that. And we want to keep that spirit alive. So no time like the present. We're gonna fire up, head back to the dock, and yeah, we'll see you guys back at the shop. It is the next day, and we are at the shop, and as you can see, we've already gotten down and dirty and are starting to work on the deals that we needed to fix as of yesterday. So I climbed underneath the boat and tightened the seal around the shift cable. That's what it was. That was an easy fix, not a big deal. If it continues leaking, I'm just gonna have him bring it back and I'll put a new seal on. It's not a big deal. He comes and picks it up tomorrow, and it's gonna take, you know, 4 or 5 days to get that puppy in. And we've already got a next boat lined up for you guys to check out. And as you can see, Dave is already in the bilge area installing some shims. So let's take a look at how he's doing it.
Is it beer time yet?
As soon as we get this problem fixed, yes. Okay. So what you're looking at right now is Dave tightening the starter back up to the block where the starting pad is on the engine. And you can kind of see, if you don't mind me climbing in real quick, yep. There's these itty bitty little shims here, right? So what's gonna happen is those shims are getting installed and physically lowering the starter when we bolt it up. And the reason why we did that is because when you hit the key, sometimes it engages, but you hear a click. And then you kick it again and it actually engages. So what's actually happening? Well, the Bendix, or the gear on the back or on the end of the starter, is hitting the flywheel. So the reason why every once in a while it actually engages is because every time it hits the flywheel, it turns just a little bit. And then eventually those teeth line up perfect and it actually engages. There is supposed to be a gap between the flex plate or flywheel teeth and the starter Bendix gear. And what we're doing right now is adding shims to basically get that to stop. So we started with 2 shims. They're really thin. I think they're what, 10 thousandths?
Yeah.
They're real thin. So we started with 2 and it got better, but we still got a click every once in a while. So we've now added 2 more, which puts us at about 40 thousandths of an inch lower on the block. So we've unhooked the coil wire so that we don't have any spark going to the motor, because as you can see, this exhaust manifold is off so that we can easily access the starter. And we're just playing with it at this point to see if we can get that tick to stop and actually get it to engage. All right, Dave is manning the key, and we're gonna cross our fingers. Yeah, did we get it?
I think so.
Yes! Hallelujah! Oh, damn it! Well, I guess I'm going to AutoZone to get more shims, but that is way better. Yeah. So it's if you pay attention, it engages, and the part that used to just click and clank because it was hitting the flex plate, flex plate, it's actually clanking subtly and then engaging on the same stroke, which means it's still hitting and still not right. But I'm gonna go to AutoZone and go get a pack of shims, because I think all it needs, and Dave is nodding his head in agreement, might need 1, maybe 2 more shims. So I'm gonna go get a pack, and we need to get a return spring on the throttle anyways. So I'll be right back. That should work. We're gonna hook it right there. And we're gonna stretch her to right there. Look at that. Now the throttle pedal has a spring on the inside of it as well. So this is just for oh shit purposes. If in case that spring breaks or something like that, this should do the trick and lock those butterflies shut. Because the last thing we want is for that cable or that spring to break underneath the foot pedal and this thing be stuck half open when he's trying to shut it and has no way of shutting it. Theoretically, you should be able to put your heel into the throttle pedal and it'll spring back up, but still, it's good to have a return spring. So we got that. Now we're gonna drop the starter and apply another shim. Did you already get him out?
Yeah.
Dang. So yeah, you can see he dropped one bolt right there, and the other one's just loose because the thing can slide in. You don't have to drop the starter all the way. So Dave's using his ultra accurate micrometer to figure out what we put in there. Okay, fingers crossed. Come on, that's good. Is there something else?
I don't know what it would be.
I don't either. An Oldsmobile 350 and an Oldsmobile 455 are going to essentially be the same thing.
It is the same block.
Right. It's just like a 396 and a 427 and a 454, right? Mm-hmm. Same deal. Yeah. The block is still part of the same family. So we know that the starter is correct. Okay. We added another 1/16 of an inch, which is a lot.
Ready?
Yep. Oh, too far. So you could hear that. Now the starter's too far away from the gear on the flex plate. That's the grinding noise. So we're gonna take that 1/16 inch back out and probably put the 30-seconds in. We'll be right back. So it's actually slipping now to where you can hear it grinding and still engaging, which is not good because that's gonna actually eat the teeth away on the flex plate. So you don't wanna run it that way. The starter is still clicking, which means that there's something wrong with it. So now we gotta go back and go to the store that we got this from and say, what's up? This is acting funny. In fact, I'm willing to bet that it probably doesn't even need shims.
Yeah. It might need a little bit.
Yeah, 1 or 2. So that's not a big deal. I'm gonna pull this starter out. We're gonna leave the exhaust off and we're gonna go back to the store and tell them something's wrong with this thing. And hopefully they have a spare that we can swap it out for. Yeah. You know you got quality shit when they give you the bolts and the shims with it.
Yeah.
So this is a factory style starter, but rebuilt or manufactured by PowerMaster, which obviously if you're in the automotive industry, you know the brand PowerMaster and the quality name that they give. Hoping that all that good juju that I just put on film is gonna make this thing work. So it looks like it came with 1 shim. Oh no, I'm sorry. It came with 2 shims. Looked real small, maybe 10,000ths shims. We're gonna get it ready and put her in and pray to God it doesn't click. Please. Ready? Okay. We're tight. Main battery. 5/16 on the starter switch. Kick power on. I'm gonna back up and say a silent prayer. Nothing at all. We have nothing at all. Here, let's do this. I'm gonna get a jumper wire and touch the relay. Don't let me down, Power Master, come on. So we're gonna take a jumper wire real quick just to see what happens when I hit main power with the main, or with relay. Got that on the relay. All right, fire in the hole, ready?
Yeah.
Nothing. What do you mean? Okay, new development. Perhaps. All right, so we got a voltmeter here. Battery switch is on. And what we've come to find out is that I can hook this up here onto the start. It's not gonna sit. I can hook that up right there and hook the other end of that straight to the starter power, and it will rotate. But when Dave hits the key, we got nothing. So we've got a voltmeter here. It's hooked to the ground. I'm gonna take the other end and I'm hooking it up to the starter signal here. And when Dave hits the key, it should theoretically send 12 volts here, which will
Key is on.
read right there.
You are at start.
Okay. Did you turn it?
Yeah.
0.
That is start.
That's start.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 4.3 volts,
Yeah.
which I don't think is enough to actually make it.
That's not enough.
So how did all of a sudden taking the old starter out and putting this one in cause that? If I hook that there, we're at 12.7. But 4 volts is not enough here to make that crank. But that is hooked directly up to the key. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna climb underneath the bow and do the same thing with the voltmeter and test the white wire that comes off the key that goes to the start. Okay, new discovery. I'm underneath the bow and I wanna show you guys something. When we take the leads from our voltmeter and go to a good ground that we know of, I'm gonna probe. We've got ignition, we have battery, and we have solenoid. Solenoid's the wire that goes to the starter that tells it to crank over. So I'm gonna go to our fuse panel here, find a good ground, and to test, I'm gonna go straight to the battery because that should have constant power. Constant power, what do we got, Dave?
12.6.
Okay, that is directly on the battery. Now, if I go over to ignition, with the key off, it should say 0, right?
Key is on. 0.
0, but when he turns the key on,
Key on. We have 12.6.
okay, and that's what gives the whole entire system power. That's what allows essentially everything to function, okay? Now, when we go over to the key to the solenoid and he cranks it, what do we get?
7.9.
Okay, there you go. That is not enough to crank the starter over, and by the time that gets over to the starter, it's lower than that. It's actually like 4 volts. So here's how to manually test this. We have our jumper wire, right? I'm gonna go to the battery, which I know has a constant 12 volts. In fact, if Dave was to probe this end with me touching the battery end, it would say 12.6 right now. I'm gonna go over to the solenoid side and jump it. This essentially gives constant power, overriding the key switch, and it should crank the starter. You can even see this, well, you might be able to see the spark. Oh yeah, you should be able to. All it's doing is sparking. It's actually not engaging the starter. Plus, when you turn the key to the solenoid position to actually crank the motor over, that is just simply connecting to the solenoid section and giving 100% battery, which should be a solid 12 volts to go to it. which is why we can get the starter to engage by doing the same hot wire deal from the main battery post on the starter over to the S, or the starter switch post on the battery. That's why we can get it to crank over, because it's getting a full 12 volts. So magically, within the time of us taking the old starter out, going to the store, replacing, fighting with them, and coming back and installing it, this decided to take a dirt nap. Right?
Right.
Unreal. So now the next thing that we got to do is disassemble this key, take it back to the store, and go buy a new one. I don't have this receipt, so unfortunately I'm going to be another $25 into a new ignition switch. Cool. I love boats. Boats are fun. This is the best job ever. Okay, upon new discovery, we decided to check a whole bunch of things, and what we ended up doing that actually worked was taking a new white wire, jumper wire right here, where the other end is in Dave's hand, and going straight to the starter signal switch. Watch this. You ready?
Yeah. Yep.
You hear that? I'm gonna do it again.
Hang on. Okay. Yeah.
So the ignition switch works. The starter is fine, but our wire, our white wire that is all nice and clean inside of the wiring harness that goes all the way this way and zip tied every 6 inches, magically is torched somehow in between changing the starters out and going to the store and replacing it. How? I have no idea. This is insane. But now what has to happen is I have to go through the wiring harness and cut every single one of these zip ties out, all the way down the gunnel, all the way down, undo the wire loom that we put on in the transom area, and run a new white wire. Why am I showing you a pile of copious amounts of zip ties on the floor? Well, because I was here till, I want to say like 10 o'clock last night, pulling the wiring harness out of this thing and putting in a new white starter wire. Well, that didn't work. And then a little more diagnosing made me run another wire out of a different spool, thinking that the spool of wire that I had was bad. Just trying to figure it out. And that also didn't work. But the funny thing was, we could take a jumper wire from the starter signal wire on the battery to the key and it would work. So why wouldn't it work after we ran it through the harness? Well, come to find out, the harness is roughly about 15 to 18 feet long, and we're using a 12 gauge wire to feed constant power or battery source power to the fuse panel and the ignition switch or the key up in the dash. By the time the power got all the way up there, and then you would turn the key into another 12 gauge wire that went to the starter solenoid on the starter, it was dropping voltage. So Dave came up with the idea of, let's put a bigger gauge wire in for our primary battery source. So we bumped that from a 12 gauge wire to an 8 gauge wire, which was pretty thick in the harness, but we did it anyways. And what do you know? It fucking worked. Excuse my language. We have been working tirelessly I think I've been to the auto parts store twice now after replacing a starter and rewiring this thing 4 times. We finally figured out that it needed more voltage going up to the key, given the fact that the wiring harness was like 16 to 18 feet, I believe is what it was. So, lesson learned, moving forward, we're gonna make sure to run heavy gauge wire up to the key and to the to the fuse panel. That way we know we have plenty of voltage to run everything. But it works now, and the starter doesn't click, which is funny because it probably clicked just simply because of low voltage. So Dustin's got an upgraded starter on us. So totally okay. I mean, lesson learned. You just got to check some things a little more thoroughly before you jump into an assumption. That clicking noise that we heard was not actually, in fact, the Bendix hitting the flex plate. It was simply the starter not getting enough voltage to actually engage all the way. So that's okay. We definitely learned a lot on this venture. We were able to get it done just in the nick of time, and here's where we're at thus far. As you can see, we've got a new 8-gauge wire going across that way into the wiring harness. We reconnected our starter wire to the new Power Master starter. And if I come over here and hit the key, she cranks really well. That there would be a Power Master high torque starter. I think, I don't know. It wasn't actually that expensive. I think it was like $180 or something like that, $200. Definitely worth it to go that route instead of doing a factory like AC Delco starter. Because as you can see, this puppy should just light right off. So what's next? We need to put the exhaust manifold back on. Before we do that, I need to get underneath the bilge and just tidy up some things, clean up. We've got a couple zip tie ends floating around in the bilge, just dumb stuff like that. And then exhaust manifold goes on, and then we work on trying to put the back seat in. The problem with this hull is that it is 50 years old, and the seats and the carpet and the interior and the floor is all soft. So one of the very first things that we're going to highly recommend doing is, one, the gauges, because obviously you need to know what's going on with your engine and everything. And two, also new interior from the wood up, right? The floor up, because it's really hard to sit in this thing when it's rocking back and forth and you don't actually feel stable. But the fundamentals are done, and hopefully Dustin and his family can go for a boat ride and have a good time. So I'm gonna go get to cleaning and work on getting that exhaust manifold back on, and yeah, it's almost beer time. Or nap time, actually. My ass is wiped out. Well, we got the interior pretty much fully mounted. We tested everything. We did a quick fire like that. 2 pumps of the carburetor and it fired right up. So I couldn't be happier. We tried getting the interior all the way bolted in, but unfortunately with this thing being sat outside for 10 years and getting rained on and snowed on and everything else, the wood in it is just not really that good. So, you know, that's probably gonna be the next project that we're gonna tackle at another time. Or if Dustin decides to get excited and try to tackle a project on his own, he can go ahead and jump right into that. But I'm sure this won't be the last time we see the old Taylor. So yeah, Dustin's coming tomorrow to pick her up, and we're gonna walk him around the boat, show him all the stuff that we did, give him a once over on how to run it on the trailer, how to drive it, all that good stuff. And then hopefully we see him soon at an event. So we'll see you bright and early in the morning. And, well, I don't know. We'll see how it goes with Dustin. Well, there she goes, back into the good hands of Dustin. Make sure to like and subscribe. Go to westcoastriveroutlaws.com to check out your latest and greatest apparel and jet boat parts. And if you guys need help with your project, no project is too big or too small. We'll take care of you. All right, I'm out. On to the next one.